What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Brainwash to be Broke, the show where we expose all the lies, all the beliefs, all the stories that we've been taught since our young age, and what is truly possible. Today, we are here with another amazing guest. His name is Mike. We had already before this episode a little conversation. He's a really interesting dude. He recently moved, but he is the founder and CEO of the True Men Life Coaching, host of the True Men podcast, and author of True Men True Ways, a book. He spent the last 5 years helping men break isolation, reclaim their identity, and lead with authenticity. So, without further ado, when people usually start a podcast, they going straight up like, what industry you're in, like tell us more what you do and this type of things. And I would love to start this conversation a little bit differently and take it from the different direction. And I'm going to ask you a really interesting question, because every person has different desires, right? Every person is in the entrepreneurship space, or they pursuing something different. And I'm like really curious about what is it actually for you when it comes to, like, what is the driving source behind all your success, everything what you do? Is it like something like is it higher power? Is it the God? Is it your legacy? Is it family? Is it like freedom? What is it for you?
Yeah, Adam, thanks. Great to be here. So I'm going to tell you a little story. Of course I am. That's what I do. Love to tell stories. So really what's driving this, I'm going to give you the answer before I give you the story. Is the answer is what's driving this is my relationship with Jesus Christ and understanding that my identity is in him. Now, here's the story. Here's the story. So, if I go back a little bit, many years, my kids were, yeah, many years. My kids were incredibly young, and I had gone through really like a lot of not just men, but people in general, where you're searching for your passion, your career, and you don't follow your passion or the career you want to be involved in. You just take the job that pays the cash, right? And you do that because it pays the bills and you're just trying to get along. And there was something inside of me that was just hurting and missing. And I found myself talking to my young children at the time who were probably 2 and 4. I mean, really young. And we never talked about daycare with them. We always talked about school. We would use the term school because we felt like, education was always going to be the key to success for them. And so I
Well,
started.
it kind of is, but what type of education, right?
Right. That's a whole other conversation. But yeah, so really what happened was I looked at my history and I went, well, I didn't complete my college. And so if I'm going to talk to my kids about how important school is, I got some business to take care of. And I went back and I got my undergraduate degree. I stayed home with the kids, was stay-at-home dad. I got my undergraduate degree and I got very involved in my church and in my community volunteering. And what I found during that time frame was a real passionate love for nonprofits. And I love nonprofits because it's a great opportunity to get into the community and help the people in many cases that need it the most. And so I felt tugged at that point by God to pursue that. And I looked at, and I had leadership and sales skills. And so I looked at what do these executive directors of nonprofits have that I don't have currently. And one of them was a master's degree. So I'd already been going to school. So I went and completed my master's degree. Here's what's interesting thing that happened. I got my master's degree. I'm doing all this volunteer work, getting really connected. But ironically enough, I tried to go out into the job market and heard crickets, nothing. And I began to internalize those no's because as men, if I go to later today, I'm going to go to a networking event and people are going to ask me my name and then they're going to ask me what I do. And
Mm-hmm.
most people are we take our identity into what we do. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a lawyer, I'm a
Yep.
doctor, I'm a
Yes.
plumber, whatever. Well, that's just what you do. That's not your
Who
identity.
you
But at
are.
that point, that's not how I viewed it, right? And so I was really hurt by the fact that I was doing all this volunteer work. Everybody that was around me wanted to be around me. They wanted more of me, but nobody wanted me in the job market.
Yeah.
And so I began to really internalize that. And it was a very low period in my life. And when I really began to put it all together, what I realized was if I was going to make things happen, it was going to have to be me that was going to have to make that happen. And that I couldn't wait around, waiting for a yes that may or may not ever come. And so I started doing some business consulting. And it was during that period, some networking where I met a good friend and we decided we didn't like the networking group. We were going to do our own thing. And but the funny part of it about that was we realized that we had a lot of questions. We were both men of Christ, but we had a lot of questions, and a lot of questions that over the years had never gotten answered. And we were curious because we were convinced that there was more to life than where we were at.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got heavily involved in men's groups. And that's really where my life began to shift. We made some connections, and I landed at a men's retreat in Goshen, Virginia, with about 300 other men. And that was 7 years ago, actually, I believe, if I'm counting right. And so it was at that retreat, the camp director got up and said, we're going to play this was on a Saturday morning. We'll play 3 worship songs this morning. They played it. The first song they played was by Josh Groban, and it's a beautiful song called You Are Loved. It's not a worship song. It was just the message in the moment. And in that moment, I heard God come to me and say, I want an intimate relationship with you. You're my beloved son. And I just remember almost hitting the floor and looking around the room going, if anybody else just heard this, got this voice, who do they go talk to? Where do they go? And what's my role in it? And so I began really digging into that. That was in the spring of 2019. 2020 rolls around. We had COVID and hoo-ha broke out. But it was during COVID where, I kind of got off track for a little bit and then found a gentleman who'd done some men's coaching. We connected, and the rest, they say, is history, because my mind was right. I was in prayer more. I was in study. I was learning how to get my questions answered and building that relationship with Christ. And I was also beginning to build a business that I was incredibly passionate about, because I felt like, well, gosh, there's got to be guys out there asking the same questions that I'm asking, And so we started the True Man podcast, and I just put out.
So that's 7 years ago, right?
Yeah. Just put out the 239th True Man podcast. I've been on countless podcasts like yours, and done a number of different things. I've been in 4 collaborative books. I wrote my own book, True Man, True Ways: A Roadmap of Discovery of the Masculine Heart. Working on speaking, and now we're expanding that out into the American Family Renaissance. And we really, really want to get back to talking about the values that nobody's being taught, nobody's talking about, and really get back to the basics, because that's where it all starts. There were many, but there are 2 very successful coaches in American history. One was the head coach of the Green Bay Packers back in the 60s, Vince Lombardi. And Vince Lombardi, every year when he got his team together, would hold up the football and start the year by saying, gentlemen, this is a football. And the other one was Coach Wooden out at UCLA back in the day, won 10 national championships. And every year he would bring his team in the locker room, and the first thing they would start with was, How do you put on your socks and tie your shoes so you don't get blisters? Okay. Now, I'm simplifying this, but the point is you don't get to third base if you don't touch second. And you got to, before you get to
Mm.
second, you got to start on first. And we've got to get back to the fundamentals. We've made it too easy for everybody to just get by,
Mm.
and that's the soft approach. And you got to put
Do
in the
you
work.
do
So
you believe in, you know, that like easy times basically create weak men's and all of that saying
I
hard
don't,
times
I don't,
create
yeah,
like,
it's
you
a
know.
good question. I don't think I don't think that it creates weak men. I think weak-minded men create
Ooh.
weak-minded men because
Mm.
we allow ourselves to be coaxed into
Yeah.
this arena of, hard and easy and fast,
Mm-hmm.
and life's not easy and fast. It's right
Mm.
in scripture. We are
Mm.
not promised that everything is going to be easy.
Yeah.
We're not promised that. There's no guarantee. But our crazy government on both sides of the aisle wants to talk about all the time. Well, you're guaranteed. Half the stuff they talk about being guaranteed isn't guaranteed. And so we got to get off that. Here's the bottom line. My grandfather was um, he was a farmer in central Iowa. And back in the day, they had family farms. And my grandfather had a 110-acre farm. They rotated crops. One year it was corn, the next year it was beans, and they had cattle and they had hogs and they had chickens because
Mm-hmm.
you kill what you eat back in the day. He had an eighth grade education, but he was a damn good farmer. He was tough and he was a loving guy and he was very funny. And I loved my grandmother too, but they were they grew up in a different time frame, a different era, and they understood work ethic and they understand what it meant to get their hands dirty and go to work, roll up your sleeves and get up early and stay up late and get things done. And technology, yes, is good in many respects, but it's changed that.
Mm-hmm.
We are a white collar society, not a blue collar society. And it's one of the reasons why we're having such a difficult time getting basic things like plumbers, electricians, welders, these jobs that are critical globally to us being able to build and get things done. And we've demeaned those jobs to the point where nobody wants them.
Mm-hmm. What is the reason? Why do you think is that the reason?
Everybody wants easy.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
It's pretty easy to walk into a grocery store and walk out with a bag full of groceries and 10 lottery tickets, just
Yeah.
hoping you'll win
Mm-hmm.
the lottery. You know how you can win the lottery and win big? I'll tell you. Go to work on yourself.
Who?
That's how you will make the money that
Oh
you
yeah.
want to make. You know, uh, Lotteries, by the way, now I'm completely off the rails here. Lotteries, by the way, are a tax on weak-minded individuals and poor people. That's what you do when you don't want to put in the work.
Mm-hmm.
I know somebody right now is going, "Holy cow, this guy's crazy." No, I'm not crazy. If you're not going to put in the work on yourself, nobody else will. It's
Mm-hmm.
your responsibility. It's your responsibility.
Many, yeah, most of the people miss it, like literally missing their responsibility. They do, they rather to blame others than themselves, and it's sad to see it because like, oh, I'm going to let somebody basically manage my whole life or lead my whole life, which is insane. Like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
like I cannot stand this. Like literally when I talk, like I can I can figure out how the person think in couple of minutes when I literally talking to some stranger on the road or on the street, basically like wherever. What the people, like what the person has in their head, in his
Yeah.
in yeah, basically, because it's just so obvious when they start talking about and start blaming and complaining about stuff, that how everything is wrong and like the whole life sucks, and that's most of the people literally, which is insane, right? And they don't take the ownership, they don't, right?
Yeah.
And
You know, Adam, are there things that I think suck? Yeah. Here's the question I ask myself: what's my role in trying to solve for what I think sucks? You know, but perfect example. I think that our value system, and I'm going to say in the United States for sure, is in the tank. I think it's terrible.
mhm,
You know, when I was going to school, we used to talk about pride. Now, I understand pride can be a negative thing, but I'm talking about the fact that you got to have a little pride. In other words, if you show up at the airport or at the grocery store, put some decent clothes on. Don't show up in jammies and slippers. Show some respect for yourself first, and then
mhm,
everybody else around you. You know, it's people don't have any pride anymore, and integrity. That's a thing of the past, because it's easier to blame somebody, shoot
mhm,
first and ask questions later. You
mhm,
know, no, that's not that's not how this works. And you know, when you play the victim card, you will reap what
mhm,
you sow.
yeah.
And that's just the bottom line. And we got too many people playing the victim card. Pull up your big boy pants and take responsibility for yourself. Period.
One of the this is one of the biggest topic, literally, like when it comes to like, and it's so crucial and so important to actually realize this, that like literally nobody going to save you, like you are the only person. And that was like, because I know I'm comparing it to my journey, because like that was literally that moment that I took the responsibility of my life, because I realized that nobody's going to save me, and like the whole world is set it up to against your freedom, like literally you being whatever you want to be, and like do whatever you want to be, or where like any in any um domain, basically, right? And I'm curious about, like, when it comes to your relationship to God, how it affected your life. Like, have you been always, when it comes to your childhood, is like, are you coming from family where you know, Christian type of family, like
Yeah.
where your parents actually like a corporate work in a corporate, or they been like a little bit of like entrepreneurship, in entrepreneurship, like driven by entrepreneur, like the entrepreneurship mindset, basically,
Yeah.
did they had? Okay.
I grew up in a middle class family at
Mm-hmm.
best. You know, Nike shoes started in 1972. I was born in 1970. And so back in the 1980s, Nike came out with their Nike Cortez shoe. And, you know, for those of you who don't know what the Nike Cortez is, that was their white leather shoe with the red strip. And everybody was getting the Nike Cortez shoe. Man, I did not get a pair of Nike shoes right out of the gate because they were just too expensive in my house. And when I got my first pair of Nike shoes, I slept with them. They meant
Mm-hmm.
so much to me because then I was a part of the crowd, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I grew up in, you know, very middle class, hardworking household, and you know, we were church was not optional on Sunday. We put on our Sunday best and went to church, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think as I got older into my teenage world, there were a lot of things that didn't make sense to me. Like, for example, I viewed church and the kind of the head of the church, the pastor, as very hierarchical. In other words, he's in the pulpit, I'm down here. He's
Mm-hmm.
basically up there saying, hey, you need to ask for forgiveness of your sins. And so in my head, I was like, what? We just ask for forgiveness and that's it. We're good. We move on, you know? And it seemed a little simplistic to me. Oh,
Mhm.
just memorize these Bible verses, and um, it just, I had a lot of questions, but I didn't address those questions. So part of that was something that happened to me very early on, which is I have a keynote in various forms that I do called the power of asking for help.
Mhm.
And so when I was 6 years old, I went into eyeglasses, which in 1976 was pretty unusual. And I had
Mhm.
astigmatism, my eyes would go crossed. And I remember going to the eye doctor. He gave me a test and he said, "What do you see?" And I said, "Well, the moon is jumping over the cow." And he kind of laughed and said,
That's-
the cow,
oh man.
the cow is jumping over the moon. And, you know, what happened to me in that moment was, it was unmistakable. I just felt stupid. But, I felt stupid. I was out of place because I was, one of the only kids in my class wearing glasses. And the other thing was, I was very introverted. I was quiet. I was
Mhm. Yeah.
shy.
Yeah.
And so all of that is a combination for disaster when you're a kid. And the adults would say to me, it wasn't the 4 eye stuff that got me.
Mhm.
It was the adults that would say, those glasses make you look smart. Well, if you look smart and you're introverted and you stop asking questions, you will fall behind. And
Mhm.
and to some degree, I did. I stopped asking questions when I had a lot. And
Mhm.
so into my adult life, what I found was that there were other men that I was getting around. And this is the importance of men's small groups.
Mhm.
You don't want to isolate yourself as a man. You do stupid stuff when you do that.
Mhm.
and and men's small groups, I'm a huge advocate for. And and not going to those small groups to just talk about, who played on Monday Night Football. I'm talking about deep into the pool stuff where you're going deep. You're talking about family. You're talking about life. You're talking about, things that have broken you, and how you can recover from them and achieve redemption. And, and the topics are wide ranging. But the fact of the matter is that we're all a broken people. It's not, a lot of us feel like one of the most common things I hear in men's small group is, "Oh, you too." In other words, as men, we bury all of our stuff, we stick it down deep in our soul, we hope we never have to deal with it. And the fact of the matter is your story is unique to you, but it's not unique. Somebody else has experienced it. And it's
Mhm.
really important that you deal with that crap so that you can have the life that you want. And so, when you get in these small groups, what you'll find is that your story,
Mhm.
it has, other people have experienced something similar. And so when I got involved in men's small group and really started having more of these intimate conversations, and began studying my relationship with Christ and building on that relationship and understanding that we're in a world at war, the spiritual battle exists between, the devil and God, that the devil had been trying to take me out for years, and he was highly successful
Mhm.
for many, many years, by the way. But I didn't understand that I was in a world at war. And so half the battle was understanding that and then building on that relationship with Christ and that intimacy. And everything that has happened to me over the last 6 or 7 years is a direct result of that intimate relationship with Christ, including this move that I recently went through, which is another incredible story that I'll be telling probably for the rest of my life because of some of the things that happen. But I have no doubt, um, that leaning into Christ and leaning into his will and leaning into the direction that he wants me to go versus what the world wants me to do has led me to this point today. And
Mhm.
here's the important part to everybody listening to this: I'm not unique here either. It is available for you. Accept that invitation, and you too will have a changed life.
I love it. Yeah, this is so powerful. When it comes to, there is also lots of like misconceptions, programming basically about what to believe in when it comes to God, right?
Yep.
Like the programming is not just about like money and like how we're supposed to live our lives, but there are like the programming is in every area of our life, right? So when it comes to Christianity,
Yeah.
what would be what you can see that like that people don't get it right, or it's not really true what they are talking about, like some of the most like the biggest topics that you completely like hate people are not really like getting it correctly.
Wow. Here's the thing I'll say about that, because I'll refer to myself as a Christian men's life coach. And people will say to me, well, if somebody's not Christian, can they come talk to you? And my answer is, well, they probably won't. So that's why and it's not that I don't want to talk to them, but here's where I'm going with that. And I'm going to use a very specific word, curious. Are you curious? You know, I am, I'll just tell you, I grew up in the Lutheran church. My wife is Catholic. They're fairly close together. I do not advocate for any one religion um, necessarily publicly. There are some that, there's a number of different things out there that, are interesting. I'll just leave it at that. But here's here's the point. You need to be curious and you need to do your own research and come to your own conclusions. And I'm very big
Mhm.
on that. I will help somebody if they want to go down that path. I will ask challenging questions so that they can find what's deep inside of them and come up with the answers.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
But I typically, Adam, don't say I would advocate one way or another. I think the misconceptions that many people have, and I'm going to say this, I had some misconceptions. In other words, as I was telling the story, I was saying I thought it was very hierarchical. In other
Mhm. Mhm.
words, I didn't have a close relationship
Mhm.
with God. I didn't have the um, prayer life that I have now. I didn't
Okay.
have the conversations that I have, with God now. And, and it's two-way communication. And so
Mhm.
people miss that. Adam, God speaks to us in a variety of different ways. It could be something you hear. It could be through somebody. It could be through something you read. It could be through a song in the moment. The question is, are you open to it? Or have you got your heels dug in that it's only one
Mhm.
way? I
Mhm.
will say, Adam, I think the church, and I'm using church in a broad sense, um, in my view, has done a poor job of preparing men to be men and fathers and understand what the struggles are. I think the church as a whole sometimes, um, they're so stuck in some of their ways that they don't understand. I think they understand, but it's terribly difficult to address the fact that from the pulpit on any given Sunday, when you have 15 to 20 minutes to give a sermon, that Timmy down there in the front row is addicted to porn. John over here is an alcoholic, and Fred back in the 25th row beats his wife. I mean, how do you address all those things? And then there's, mental health issues and all that stuff. And so, I think the church, you know, that's part of the challenge of the church. And I
Mhm.
don't think men historically have not been big church goers. And, I think part of that is this whole masculinity thing. Like, well, I don't need to go to church, but you do need to go to church. You need to recharge your batteries. But I think that there are a lot of misconceptions out there. There's been, I mean, the news stories go on and on and on over the years about, abuse that has occurred in the church. And let's face it, that is a turnoff
Mhm.
for a lot of people. And, but, so I understand the misconceptions that are out there. I have these conversations quite frequently. I think the church overall does a very good job of helping people. I think that if you go to a church and you feel like I'm not getting what I want,
Mm,
I think it's important to connect with some of these small groups that are very established that have been doing this for a long time, because you will find men that were in the same position as you were, and they can help guide you down a different path.
mm, mhm.
There's only so much you're going to get out of a 15 or 20-minute sermon on any given Sunday. And you were probably asleep for half of it anyway. So, um,
I've been raised in like very traditional family, when we've been going to church and I have the ceremony and all of that, like when it comes to um Christianity. And like I was really confused when I basically like being kid and I didn't actually understand like what is there is some higher power or like what is it actually all about. I didn't really understand, and then like when and I didn't understand it like until like or start thinking about it and like literally finding the way to God until I jump into entrepreneurship, which is really interesting because like most of the people who are in entrepreneurship, they believe in some higher power or God, Jesus,
yeah,
or yeah, and that's really interesting in like to
everybody
me,
believes in something.
right?
Whether that's a healthy thing or not is
Mm,
a whole other question. I just happen to believe Jesus Christ is my Lord and
mm,
Savior.
mm-hmm,
And I subscribe to how could I not? The name of my podcast is a True Man Podcast. The name of my coaching, True Man Life Coaching. True Man comes from Scripture. In our view, and True Man was our men's small group. True Man comes from Scripture. It's Jesus Christ walk on earth as a true man.
mm-hmm,
Why did we do that? He was the ultimate role model. Now, he's perfect.
yeah,
We can't attain perfection, but we can strive for it. He showed us the way, he showed
mm-hmm,
us the model,
yeah,
and he died so that we could be saved. So he
mm-hmm,
shows us the way. In fact, one of the things that I'm working on right now is I've taken the 9 aspects of the fruit of the spirit, and we're going to talk about them as the mark of a restored man. And what do these mean? Because I have not found that anybody is talking about the fruit of the spirit from a masculine perspective. It's something that people talk about when they're in grade school or whatever. But these attributes of love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self control, if you work on all of those 9 marks, you are going to be, Adam 2.0 or Mike 2.0 or whatever your name is 2.0. You will become a better person. And these attributes are things and marks that Jesus, left for us to follow. 12 disciples. Isn't it amazing that one man sent by his father would introduce 12 disciples who would go out, and now I don't even know what the number is, billions, millions. We're still trying to reach and disciple people on this earth and introduce them to Christ. And so that started with one man,
yeah,
one man. And it's a very powerful thing. And I understand not everybody believes that, but we all have free will. There you go, to make those choices.
yeah, yeah. Have you build your business based on scripture? Because like some people do, like literally they building their businesses based on scripture. And like it's really interesting because they're reading a Bible like a business book basically, like entrepreneurship book. Like
Well, keep in mind, Jesus, when he was on earth, did a majority of his work in the marketplace.
mhm,
So, do I take it from, excuse me, here's what I do. And this is exactly what I did when I wrote my book, True Man, True Ways.
Mm-hmm.
So I talked about a lot of things in there that I would consider really baseline stuff for most men. I talked about goals. I talked about how you should treat your temple, your body, respectfully. I talk about, finances and money and I, when I, but how, what I chose to do differently with those things was, okay, you've heard people talk about these for years, but what does scripture have to say about these things? What makes
Mm-hmm.
this important from a biblical standpoint?
Mm-hmm.
And so everything that I looked at in my book, I checked in with scripture. And I think I run my life that way. In other words, and that's more of my prayer life on a daily basis.
Yep.
You know, and I recently did an interview with a gentleman who's an amazing man, Bob Bodine. He wrote a book called Two Chairs, and in Two
Mm-hmm.
Chairs, they talk about every morning you take a chair, and then God's got a chair right next to you, and basically you're asking three important questions. God, do you know what I'm going through? Yes, of course he does. Is this too big for you? No, of course not. God, what do you got for me? What do you want from me? And then you do the listening. Most of us have it backwards. We do the telling or we cut deals, right? Have you ever done that one? Like, Lord, if you just come through on this one, I'll pray for 365 days straight, right?
Yeah.
and so, we cut deals. You know, here's what I've learned, and it's so exciting to me. It's a two-way street. I especially on Sundays I'll do this where as part of my workout I'll add an extra. It's usually a lift day for me, and then I'll do a walk, and I like to do walk and talks, and sometimes I'll do them, and so it's like I don't have my iPods in. I'm out walking through. I'm sure my neighbors are like, "What the?" So this guy is like talking to himself, like God's right there with me, and we're doing a walk and talk, and and we're just talking about what happened this week, what's going on in the week ahead. What do and then sometimes I'll just shut up and say, I'm just going to be quiet right now. What do you
Mm.
want me to hear? What do you want me to feel? What do you want me to see? My eyes are open to it, and and everything that is occurring in my life, Adam. I would not be here today talking with you had I not been deepening and strengthening that relationship.
Mm.
I was talking with somebody here the other day, and I've known I have several mentors, but my mentor for one of the businesses that I'm a part of now, I met 4 years ago, and he came to me when he asked to be on a podcast. We recorded a podcast together. It was episode number 38, which seems like a million years ago. And I was talking with somebody yesterday, and I was like talking about my mentor, and I said, "Man, we just put out episode number 238." And then it hit me. It was on episode 38 that I met one of my mentors that has catapulted me from what
Mm.
I thought was good leadership to exceptional leadership.
Mm-hmm.
He's taught me how to give more in order to receive more of anything that I want in my life. And I thought I understood that principle, but I was just skimming the surface, and I'm still
Mm.
digging in on it. And so, you know, would I have ever met somebody that would catapult me and put me in a position to absolutely make me a superstar business person and change my life so that I could go out and change other people's lives? Man, somebody's got a hand in that.
Yeah.
Somebody has a hand in that, you know? And
It
it's
feels
really
like it. Yeah.
developing that relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. It feels like you have this type of. Do you do that ritual like every week or like every day, or what
What, the
is
walk
like?
and talks?
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Not every day because but I do other things.
Yeah.
So, part of my morning routine,
Right.
um, uh, part of me is ashamed to say this, and then part of me is like, I would always be involved in Bible studies, but one thing I had never done was I'd never read the Bible cover to cover. And last year, I read the Bible cover to cover in 10 months, and I'll do the same thing again this year. And, you know, that was inspired by my mentor, who's been reading the Bible cover to cover every year for over 30 some years now. And, you know, a lot of people will just read, for example, like the New Testament. And what's interesting is, and he really encouraged me to focus on the Old Testament. Now, as a new Christian, I would tell you to start with the new, but when you go to the old, what's important about the old? Well, if you're going to be a leader in life, you need to read the Old Testament, because there's nothing new under the sun. The people that Moses were leading, they bitched and complained and moaned the whole time. They didn't have patience for 40 years in the desert, and they were sick of eating the manna. And, but the same people exist today as existed in the Old Testament. Now, we have a lot of rule of law here. I mean, we're not lopping
it's really
people's
interesting, right?
heads off all over the place. I mean, the Old Testament is brutal, man. Okay. But if you look at what the people were doing in the Old Testament, and then you look at what we're seeing here on earth today, it's the same. And so if you read and you study the lessons of the Bible, there are insurmountable leadership lessons and characters that you can pull from the Bible to learn from. And so I really enjoy doing that, and learning from history. As you talked about history. This
is another question.
Is important. Why? Because you will repeat something some other moron already did. But if you study what they've done, you will see, a lot of people say, why are we at war in the Middle East? Why do we do it? There's nothing new. They've been at war. These people, I'll tell you right now, this Iran situation. These Iranian government officials, I'm going to say government officials because it's kind of like China, man. I'm sure the people there don't want this, but it's the government controlling everything, right? They have no intentions of stopping everything. They will fight to the death. It's all they know. They will fight to the death. And so, how long are we going to, stay in that fray? Now, here's the thing. Go read the Bible and you'll be like, man, why are we doing it? Sometimes I ask myself, I'm like, why do we do anything over there? They've been doing this for 2,000 years, man. Like, why are they going to stop now? But there's oil and there's money. And when you follow that trail, there always going to be people fighting. Money is power to do good when it's used wisely. Money's also power to do evil. And, and so we see a lot of that, but man, I pray every day for world peace.
And that's one of the things also, like, that's pretty much profound, saying that, like, all money are root of, or was it this way? The money are root of all evil, but which is not true. It's literally, I don't know where those people actually get it from, but like, it's the love of to money, right?
Yeah, it's the love of money that's evil. The love of money is evil, but my mentor tells a story all the time. He was on a plane going to a charity event with a gentleman by the name of W. Clement Stone. W. Clement Stone founded Combined Insurance out of Chicago, and really to this day one of the largest insurance insurers in the world. And he leaned over to W. Clement Stone and said, "What is money?" And that's where W. Clement Stone said, "Money is the power to do good." And power. W. Clement Stone really helped fund Napoleon Hill, and then the book Think and Grow Rich, so very incredibly wise man. And so, you know, here's how I look at it, Adam. Do I want to make a lot of money? The more money I make, the more lives I can help and the more lives I can change and
Yeah. Yeah.
impact. And so I don't look at this from a greed standpoint. In fact, I rarely talk about money or make a statement like that publicly. I look at it and go, how many lives can I impact?
Mm,
Because if I'm in the right business, the money's going to show up because,
mhm.
the reality of everything that I'm doing, I have different businesses that I'm involved in, but they all have one thing in common. Number one, they're Christ-centered businesses, and number two, they're there to help impact the lives of people. Now,
Yeah.
can I show you or anybody else how to make however much money they want to make? The answer to that is yes.
Yeah.
But now they have to make a choice.
Mm.
How hard do I want to work to achieve that? I will show
Ooh,
you
yep.
the tools.
Yep.
I will show you the tools. And some of those tools I'm still learning,
Yeah.
how to
Yeah.
use that my mentor is teaching me. But I will show you the tools. I will provide you the tools.
Would
Now,
you,
whether
would
you
you,
want to pick up those tools and go, that's
mm,
completely on you. And, here's what I've learned. I used to go, like, yeah, man, the 1%, such an interesting, the 1% is the 1% for a reason. It's not the 1% that I'm trying to get myself to. I want to be a part of the
mhm.
half of the 1% because those people they have figured it out. They
Yeah.
have figured it out. And it definitely goes back to that whole idea that Zig Ziglar brought to us. You know, find out what somebody wants and you help them go get it, and you
Mm,
will achieve everything that you want in life. And so,
mm,
be a giver, don't be a taker. And so when I meet people, I want to know their why right away.
mhm.
What's your
Yeah.
why? What do you want to achieve in life?
Yeah.
And what's amazing to me, Adam, is how few people actually know, or they kind of hem
Oh,
haw
yeah.
on, or they give you a half-hearted answer, or whatever, almost like they're not serious. And
Most of the people, they don't even have a goal. Like, set it up for your
yeah,
life. Like, how you can achieve something without a goal? Like, how you can, like, and even most importantly, if you don't know where you are currently, how do you want to know where you, like, how to change to be able to achieve something? Like, this is so important things to actually figure out, right? Like or having it all the time in front of you to be
yeah.
able to, like, become better version of yourself, right? Like, I'm literally all life learner. I love learning, and it's really interesting because school taught us the opposite, hate learning. But right, and I believe that you are the same way, because, like, you always searching for new answers, searching for new, like, how you grow, you outgrow yourself.
Well, here's the thing, Adam, and I learned this from my mentor too, because this used to scare me because it wasn't happening. Business comes down to results. Plenty of people are busy. Busy doesn't equate to anything.
Ooh.
I mean,
Yep.
people say all that. This is a word, by the way, that I've tried to strike from my vocabulary. I want to be productive. I want to use my calendar. I want to make my calendar hard to get on. I want to use my time wisely.
Mhm.
Am I doing a lot of things right now? You bet.
Mhm.
But am I busy? I mean, busy people are, not successful people. I want to be around the people that are doing 30 things, at all times. Now you can only do one that you can't be a multitasker. That's a myth, by the way, but you can only do one thing at a time. There was, again, a whole other discussion, but
Yeah.
don't, if you're busy, boy, you may want to reframe that word or take a look at that word and really dive into your schedule and how you're running your calendar and what you're doing and all that, because I mean, busy does not equate to results. And the bottom line is, if you're not getting the results you want, you need to change something. And I'll tell you, probably likely is a habit that you're fallen into that you're not doing right, and you're probably going to need to change that habit, you know?
Yeah.
And so, that the result, if you're not getting the results you want, you got to take a look at things and go, why am I not getting the results I want? How do I get the results I want? If I want to make $1 million a year, what kind of results do I need to produce in order to make that happen? Now, I went through a long period of my professional career where I didn't want to look at the results because it wasn't happening. It wasn't happening. And so what I've come to understand is, no, I have to look at the results. Stephen Covey, wrote a great book, and it primarily was centered around the idea of, what think with the end in mind. What is the end result you want? Now, what is it going to take to get there? Guy sold millions of books loosely based around that idea, and many others. But, because I know not everybody does. So I'm saying, if you want to be the best, these are the things you have to do. There's no exception. And the only shortcut is that you get around people that have done it so that they can, help you.
Yeah.
That's the only shortcut. You're still going to have to put in the work.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. Like I don't know where I would be if I wouldn't do what I've done. Like, from the work ethic, like literally put into like, blinders on and literally do what I'm supposed to do, and like figuring out what is actually the needle or the things that moves the needle, basically, right? Because like people, like you can spend so much time doing some stuff that doesn't make any, like, just because it's comfortable. For example, it can be like you are scared of doing something new, taking action to the unknown, right?
Yeah.
And like people are so scared of like one of the biggest one is like people are scared of unknown, like doing something that is completely new, going out from the comfort zone, right? Doing something that is like literally like they've never done. And I know, like, because I've been the same way. But then like when you actually start doing it start, I think in in my situation it was because I haven't been trusting myself enough. And when I took the action, I actually start seeing that I am capable of anything and everything what I going to take into my mind. And basically from there, lots of stuff changed to me, like for me.
Yeah. Well, people put themselves in virtual prisons.
Right.
And a lot of it's just from past baggage that they carry around. And then, over and above that, fear just resonates in people's lives from a number of different perspectives. And fear will hold you back. It will keep you stuck. And so, I used to hear people say, well, if you're going to be successful, get used to being uncomfortable. And I didn't fully understand what that meant until the last 2 or 3 years. And I've gotten to a place now where I'm often so uncomfortable that I'm comfortable being uncomfortable in a way that I didn't even think was possible. Even today, tonight I'm going to go to just because I want to meet new people. I'm, new to where I am. I'm going to go to a networking group. I think there's going to be, many, many people there. I don't know anybody that I'm going to walk into that room and see, and I'm going to shake as many hands as I possibly can. Is that scary? No, it sounds like a heck of a lot of fun to me. And here's the thing. If I don't go in that room tonight, how am I going to help anybody in there?
Yeah.
The answer to that is no.
Yeah.
I'm not here. God has not called me in to do what I'm doing and not run out and meet people and help impact their lives and share with them some of the things that I'm doing and give them the opportunity to partake in that and maybe learn and get to the same place I am. Listen, man, I am not, I'm not the gold standard on anything. I'm as broken as anybody else, and I'm still learning. I'm still a work in progress, but I know enough to be dangerous at this stage, right? And I've got the tools in my tool belt to help so many people if they're willing. And, most aren't, sadly.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, brother. It was a pleasure to have you here. I would love to ask you a question before we wrap up.
You
When it
bet.
comes to your personal life and your business life, like where are you going towards? Like what is the future? Like, you imagining your future to be like from both sides.
Yeah. So everything that I'm working on right now is really moving towards not renaming or rebranding. I don't necessarily agree with either one of those words. I just think that this is something that God has put in my path here. But we're really working. It started with a men's summit called the American Family Renaissance, the power of asking for help, the American Family Renaissance Men's Summit. And when we started talking about that, what we really realized was that this wasn't a summit; this was a movement that
Mm,
needed to happen, and it was much bigger than just a one-off summit.
right.
That we needed to start talking about and sharing with men on how they can be better and stronger for their families and improve their family life and themselves. And so everything that I'm moving towards right now is about improving the lives of the American family. And I just think that's critically important. I'm at an interesting point in my life. Um, my wife and I recently became empty nesters when we were living in Georgia for a number of years. We left Georgia. Our son graduated from college in December, and he's in Georgia, has a job. Our daughter will be a senior in college next year, and so we're at and we're caring for our aging parents, and so we're at a different spot in our life, but it all circles back to family. And I will tell you, Adam, that one of the reasons we made this move was to be closer to my wife's parents. It was about family. I mean, it also makes it easier for me to drive up to the Midwest and get to my family in about 6 hours in time rather than hopping on a
Mm.
plane. And so this isn't something I just randomly picked out of thin air. It's something that I'm living and breathing on a daily basis. And so I just think that we need to get back to um, talking about
Mm.
values and pride, and the importance of these things, and making the time for our family and friends, and and making less time for things that don't matter, like surfing on Facebook for 60 minutes a day or whatever the case may be. But I think these things are what is important, not just in America, by the way, but across the globe. And I got to watch where if you're watching this video, I got to watch where I put my foot. I just blew a light out there, but I love it. I love it. But
All good.
so we're really working hard on the American Family Renaissance, and that men's summit is going to
Yeah.
be online. But the goal here, what we're talking about, is we want to get more out belly to belly and eyeball to eyeball, and be doing and hosting events where we're doing trainings and workshops, and
Mm.
putting these things together, and really um, seeing people in person and talking about these things that I just don't think I'm the only one that thinks it matters, right? I think a lot of people think think it matters, but we're not having the conversation. And I'm crazy enough to just put my hand up in the air and go, I'll do it. So that's what we're going to do.
Yeah. What do you think about the whole world, like how it's changing so fast with the technologies and so on, like now?
Technology is important, by the way, Adam. I sometimes demean it, but here's the thing. It allows you and I to put a podcast on and to get to people very quickly. And I'm going to say spread a positive, joy filled message. And I think that's important because there are plenty of podcasts out there that are not doing that. And they're spreading hate and disinformation.
Yeah.
And low information people sometimes take that information and don't don't do what's right with it, or they believe it. But the internet provides us to disseminate information so people can come find us. It allows us to put online courses together and these types of things, and allows us to learn at a much quicker pace sometimes, and do self study and do research, and all those things are great.
Yeah.
So I don't want to demean it. I'm no different than any other business person out there. I'm leveraging every aspect of technology that I can, or I can, maybe I should say, can afford to, and even embracing AI technology. AI technology is not going to go away. This is the lowest point it's ever going to be, and it's pretty doggone stout right now. And so, if there's a business person listening to this, I would tell you, for your business, you better figure out how to leverage AI and for your business. Not because it's easier, it is in some cases. However, it allows you to think differently and come up with things very, very quickly and powerfully. But I would encourage you to customize that to your business practice and not necessarily take it for face value. But
Yeah.
technology, allows us to. I mean, heck,
The AI. When we talk about AI, it's pretty much a tool, right? It's literally a leverage tool, in my opinion.
yeah,
Like it shouldn't think for you. It should be amplification of you, in my opinion, right? And like there are lots of misconceptions also, like about AI, and like how people are using it for like so stupid, like it's so many stupid things that I like just wasting time because it's comfortable. So but that's how it is with everything, right? Like what we've been talking about. So make sure if you use AI, make sure that you actually use it for something that actually affect your business in a good way, right? And yeah, like provide maybe even better experience for your clients and so on, but
yep,
not like stupidly, right?
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, brother. Let's three rapid fire and then we wrap up. So the first one is one book that actually like influence most of like your life, if I frame it
I'm gonna
correctly.
I'm gonna break it out this way. Outside of the Bible, I think everybody should be reading Think and Grow Rich. It's kind of the baseline of self development.
Yeah, yeah, really love it. Then if there is, what advice would you take down from the internet is completely BS, like that it's not really like serving people or helping people, and more like hurting people?
Every news channel.
Oh wow, yeah, okay. That's first person who actually said news, every news channel, really cool, and I completely agree on it. I like, do you do you watch TV? Do you watch TV? Do you watch news? Do you listen news? Like any
Yes,
sorts of yeah,
yes, because of a couple of things. Number one, at one point, I thought I was going to get. I I love politics. I
okay.
love I love I'm interested in government, and I love politics. And it's kind of like the car wreck you see on the side of the road, and everybody rubbernecks because they're looking on the other side of the road. I mean, that's what politics is for me. And so, what I've had to do is learn who's reliable, who's not reliable, who's trustworthy, who's not
Right.
trustworthy, and take some of it in bite-sized chunks. And the other thing that I've come to realize, and it's why I said every news channel, is it doesn't matter whether you're on the right or on the left. And I'm just going that direction. It doesn't matter whether you're on the right or the left. And it doesn't matter what news channel you listen to that is probably leaning one way or the other. They all have an agenda, and they all have people that pay for advertising. And that's, they're gonna run with that agenda. So it's like anything, people. You got to do your research and dig in a little bit. And I've had to open my mind up about a lot of things. In other words, and this is a major work in progress for me, I will tell you. We sometimes, when we talk about politics, we refer to kind of, and I'm just going to say like our team or their team, right? It's like it's some kind of game. I'm making an effort to pray for the other team more. But I'm also praying for the morons on my team that don't seem to get it either. So but
interesting. Okay.
Yeah, but the news channels and these programs, they have an agenda like anything else, and so it starts with that.
Cool. So the last one is, if this would be last interview we would ever done, what would be the message that would you love to leave behind you for others?
Don't be afraid to ask for help. It's not a place of weakness. It is a place of strength.
This is awesome. Well, thank you so much, brother. That was amazing. I really enjoyed the conversation. And for everybody who's listening, we will see you in the next episode. Bye for now.
Thanks, Adam.